Hello everybody. Today we're going to go through a service call using SWRemote version 3. This is going to be an in-depth look at a service call so that any new service technicians of yours would like to get trained up can follow along using this video. To get started, please have your technicians log into the device and have a call scheduled on that device for them to work through. Once you have that call scheduled, you'll now be able to follow along with me here on the device. Before we get started, I also want to mention that the iPad can be used in both a portrait or landscape mode. And by iPad, I also mean any Android tablet as well. You can do it in portrait mode, or if you were to turn it to landscape mode, you can set it as landscape mode as well. So regardless of what screen you use it on, the application will act the same. Okay, so after your technicians log in, they're now going to be presented with their first call. And with that, they're going to see some information about their call. They're going to see the customer's name, the address. They're going to see the time the call was scheduled. They're going to see that they are the primary tech on the call right here. They're going to see the type of call. They're going to see a priority, if you set a priority inside SWRe for the call. And they're going to see whether or not this call was confirmed by your dispatch staff. If your dispatch staff right-clicks on a call and clicks Call Confirmed, it will show up here on the device as confirmed, so that the technician knows that this call has been confirmed. In addition, at the top there's a Refresh Assignments button. If I were to click that button, it will now refresh the information on the device with what's inside SWRe. In addition, off to the left-hand side at the top, there's a menu button. And that'll open a side menu so that the technician can go through and view additional information here on the device. If you give them permissions to do things like a schedule search or a customer search, those buttons will be available. In addition, they have the About button to look about some information on their device, as well as Settings. Inside Settings, they can take a look at two buttons that may pop up from time to time. First off is the Reload Assignments button. If the office ever makes a change on your device, Reload Assignments would force the device to download any of the changes that the office has made. In addition, there's Force Resync over here on the right. If the office makes any price book changes and they want to make sure they get onto the device, you can hit the Force Resync button and that will save reload that price book right onto the device. So let's click Save to get out of here. And then hit Close. And we're back to get ready to start with our call. We can hit the menu button at any time to open or close that side menu. And you'll see I'll get into that a little bit further. At this point, we're ready to step forward with a call. And to do that, we click right on the call. And you'll see that it will turn the call blue and begin us stepping into the first step of our call. The first step that loads up is a directions screen, and ultimately where we're able to dispatch out to the call. You'll see along the top here what step you're on in the call. And right now we're in the dispatch step. You can see that it says dispatch in the top left corner highlighted. Below that you have directions. These would be any kind of direction notes that were entered in by the dispatch staff. So that'll pull up right here to give you directions for the location. This is great if you have a gated community passcode, or if you have bring a 16-foot ladder, or any other kind of directions on file for the location. In addition, there's the map button at the bottom. And by clicking this, it'll load up a map in the application of where your call is. So you can kind of zoom in and out and see where within your town you're heading to for that call. You can hit Close and that will close that map. At this point, we're ready to step forward with our call. And to do that, we just hit the forward arrow. The forward arrow is always going to step us through the application. So I click that forward arrow and it's going to dispatch me out to the call. And this will show that I am now driving to the customer's location and I'm en route. In addition, back inside the office, they will also see that you're en route to the customer's location. Once en route, it's going to load us to the Step 2 en route screen. So you'll see right here, we are en route. In addition, we have a map here in front of us, as well as now a navigation button down at the bottom. If I were to click the navigation button, it will open up the map software on your device and give you turn-by-turn directions from your location to the job site. And inside at least the Apple products, if I were to hit Start, it'll actually read the map directions to me. If you were using Google Maps, it would load up the Google Map platform and allow you to just start those maps as well. Once you're done, you would hit End, and that'll end the directions. And if you hit the main button on the tablet, it brings you back to the home screen, and you click back on the SWRemote icon, it brings you right back to where you were. So that's how you would load up direction notes if you needed them. When driving to the location, you can hit the forward arrow again, and now get ready to put yourself on site at the customer's location. This will show that you've now driven to the location and you've now put yourself on site. You are actually not on site until you hit this forward arrow. When you hit this forward arrow, you will be placing yourself on site at the customer's location. You can update your duration for how long you expect to be there right here as well. And this will let dispatch know approximately how long you think you're going to be there. And once you hit the forward arrow, you'll put yourself on site, and the office will now see that you're on site at the customer's location. Now that we're on site, we can begin to work the job. When working the job, we also have access to some additional information in the side menu. If I were to click the menu button, it's going to open up the side menu here so I can view some information. And now that we're on the job, we can view some of this information here on file for the job. First off, if I were to hit the instructions button, this will pull up the job instructions. So the information about the call and any instructions that were entered in down here you'll see for the job instructions on file for the job. You can hit close to make that go away. In addition, we have access to customer information. This will pull up all the different customer information that we have on file. I'm going to close the side menu here to make it a little bit bigger for us to read. So here it brings up customer information that we have on file. And along these 5 or 6 tabs we have right here, we can take a look at all of the information on file for the customer. First one we're going to take a look at is location. This will pull up the address for the customer's location, including phone numbers, email address, as well as a bit of a summary screen on the right-hand side. And down at the bottom you'll see any kind of location notes that may have been entered in. Your technicians can hit the edit button to edit this information. This will allow them to edit things like addresses or phone numbers for the customer. Or at the bottom you'll see where it says email address. This is where the technician can capture an email address out in the field for that location. So if they were to plug in an email address here, that will save that email address on file for the customer. And in a little bit, when we get ready to wrap this call up, we can go ahead and email off the invoice to the customer using the email address we have saved here. Once we're done editing the location, we can click Save, and that will save that information. The next tab I want you to go to is the Account tab. This will pull up billing account information. If it was a landlord-tenant situation, this would be the landlord on file. You would see the information with the landlord. You would see the customer's name, address, phone numbers, as well as payment information such as a balance or deposit on the account. Now this would be for the billing account associated with the location. Again, it could be a landlord or it could also be a commercial billing account if you guys work with those. You'll note that you cannot edit this information. You can simply view information on file for the billing account. The next tab you can take a look at is the Agreements tab. You click on this Agreements button and this will pull up any of the service agreement information on file for the customer. This would be if the customer has one of our service agreement maintenance plans. We can see the type of plan, the date range it's active, whether it's active, expired, or terminated, and we would see all of the upcoming visits inside here as well. So we can see that information on file for the maintenance plan that the customer may have. We will also see service agreement history, meaning that if the customer happened to have a service agreement a few years back, but it's no longer active, we will see that right here, and we would see the word terminated next to it. So we know that at one point they were a service club member, and we can use that in our sales process. But please note it is terminated, so if you're supposed to give the customer any kind of discount, it may not apply in this instance. The next tab is Equipment. This is where we can view the different types of equipment on file for the customer. You'll see the equipment type at the top and then some information about the equipment. You can scroll through and see all the different equipment types that you may have. With equipment, you'll see the type of equipment, model, serial number, age of the unit, as well as any applicable warranty information. So you can see whether or not this piece of equipment has an active warranty right here. This would be a warranty that is entered inside the office inside SWRemote. Now you can click on this equipment to bring up a screen to edit it. You can edit things such as a serial number, model number, the location of the unit, age of the unit, and any applicable filter information. You may also mark a unit out of service. The out of service checkbox would show that this is no longer the active unit at the customer's location. That would delete it off the customer's location on the iPad and put a red line through it back inside the office. This would show that it's no longer the active unit. So if you were out there replacing a piece of equipment, you would mark the old one out of service and then add a new one. I will be showing you how to add a new piece of equipment shortly. So that's how you would edit equipment. And once you're done, you would click Save, and that would save that information. The next button I want you to do is hit the Add button. If you were to hit the Add button, this will open up a blank template where you can go through and add equipment on file for the customer. We can add things such as the type and manufacturer. So you can choose a type by hitting the drop-down list and scrolling through your different equipment types. I'm going to choose a condenser. I can choose the manufacturer. Again, I could scroll through the manufacturers to find the one that it is and select that. I can put in the location of the unit. I can put in the serial number, and for me I'm just going to use a couple of numbers here, but of course when you're out in the field you want to just grab the real serial number that you're seeing out there, and model number. Below that we can put in the install year. This would be in 4 digits the year the unit was installed. We could put in any applicable filter information. Again, this unit may not have a filter, but I just want to give you an example of the type of information you can enter in here. So I put in the filter information, and then once I'm done, I can lower the keyboard by hitting the lower keyboard button. And now I can hit Save at the top, and that will save that equipment on file for the customer. So that's how you would go through and add equipment. The next tab I want you to take a look at is the History tab. This will pull up detailed service history for the location. This would be the last 10 calls completed at the customer's location. And as you scroll down, you'll go further into the past with those calls. With each call, you'll see the date the work was performed, the total ticket of the work done, work suggested notes, and the job instructions for those previous jobs. As well as you'll see the type of call and the tech that did the work. So you'll see that information for the history on file with the customer so that you know a little bit about what happened. Again, you will see the last 10 calls on file for that customer. Alright, so that's everything I wanted to show you today about the customer. Once you're done, you can hit Close, and that will close this information. And that's going to head us back to our assignment. And now we're at the invoice screen, and we can get ready to build an invoice for the customer. First off, if we're told to do anything with the invoice number, we can click inside the screen and change it. Also with tax codes, if we're told to manipulate the tax code, we can go inside here and change the tax code if needed. And at this point, we can add items onto our invoice. To add items, we can do it in 2 main ways. The first way is to hit the plus item screen. So you hit the plus item button, and this will pop up so we can go through and add items. And we can add items kind of 2 ways inside here. One way is to type in the item number or a description of the item and click search. And then the other way is to go through our price book catalog to find an item. Let me go ahead and show you the search feature. First, I'm going to click inside here and type in DIAG because I'm looking for my diagnostic. And if I were to click search, it's going to search my database for all of the different types of diagnostics I might have on file here. So for me, I know that it's a standard $80 diagnostic, so I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up my diagnostic item. So this is where you would go ahead and search for either your service fee, your diagnostic fee, your trip charge, whatever it is that you may be looking for as a fee to show that you're going out to the customer's location. If your service fee happens to have a price level, you can hit the drop down right here, and you can change the price level if there's one there. So you may have a club rate or an after hours rate, and you can change it right there. In addition, you can mark the item as discountable or not to show whether or not a discount would be applied to this item. And once you're done, you would click Save, and that will save that item as an item onto our invoice. And if I were to close out of the Add Item screen, I will now see that I have my diagnostic here on my invoice. With the diagnostic, I'll see the item, I'll see the description, I'll see the price of the item, and the price level right here on the screen. I also have a red X over here if I wanted to delete this item off of my invoice. Alright, so now that I have my one item on here, let's go through and add additional items. In this way, I want to show you how to do it a different way. So let's hit the plus item button again. But once inside the plus item button, I'm not going to search for an item. I'm going to hit the catalog button here in the top right to open up the price book catalog. And this is where I can go through and add items onto my invoice. Now, depending on how you bill customers, you might be putting a labor item, you might be putting a miscellaneous item, you might be putting a part item. Or for a majority of you guys are flat rate pricing. And flat rate pricing is done inside of tasks. So if I were to click the task button, it's going to open up to all my different price book task categories. Now, if you guys are flat rate, you can go right inside your flat rate book. Or if you're a level pricing, you can go right inside your level. And again, it really depends on how you guys bill out jobs to your customers. For me, I'm going to go into my flat rate straightforward pricing guide. I click on that and I have my different levels here to go ahead and choose items. For me, I'm going to go ahead and choose a level 2 task. So I click on the level 2 task and it's going to open up all of the items inside this group. I can always go back if I need to by hitting the back arrow back to my there and back once more to show the different price book items here. But again, I'm going to go back inside my category, then from there go inside my group, and I'm going to go through and find the item I am using here. I'm going to click on this contactor task right here to show that I'm doing a contactor. And now that item is going to get added onto my invoice. So go ahead and select a task. Once you select the task, it's going to bring you back to a screen here where we can edit the item. As discussed previously, if you have a price level for the item, you can hit the drop down here and change the price level if needed. Again, if it was done at like a silver rate or an after hours rate, you can change it right there. And you'll see that it'll change the price of the item, and then you can click Save. Now that'll add that next item onto my invoice. And if I were to hit Close, and close once more, you'll now see that I have my diagnostic and my contactor task here on the invoice. Just to get additional practice here, let's go and add another item onto our invoice. To do that, I'm going to hit the plus item button. And this is going to open up a screen where I can add the item again. And again, I'm going to go into my catalog this time to find the item. From here, I'm going to go down to task. And from task, I'm going to go into my category. And from category, I'm going to go into my group. For me, is a level. And inside here, I'm going to find the right item. And this time, I'll add a capacitor. So I'm going to click on my task to get ready to add that item onto the invoice. Why don't you go ahead and select the task as well? Once you selected the task, again, you can change the price level right here. And then you would click Save, and that'll add that line item onto the invoice. And if I were to hit Close, and close once more, it'll bring me back to the invoice screen here, where you'll now look at the service fee or diagnostic task, that contactor task, and the capacitor task that I've added onto the invoice. And of course, whatever items you added onto the invoice would be displayed on your device here as well. Okay, so that's how you add items onto the invoice. Let's talk about some other scenarios that may happen out in the field. There may be a scenario where you're selling or renewing a service agreement for the customer. To do that, you would hit the plus agreement button in the center of the screen. This will pop open a screen where you can now go through and add an agreement line item to the invoice. To do that, you can select the type of agreement right here to choose from your different agreement types. You may have a prepaid agreement type, you may have a monthly agreement type, or you may have multiple different types. So whatever agreement that you need, you can go ahead and select right here. For me, I'm going to go ahead and select a prepaid agreement. This will pop up where I have now an agreement with the total amount and the collected amount right here on the invoice. So it was prepaid, so I know it's $200 and I'm collecting $200. If told to do so, I can change this total amount and collected amount to be what I need it to be. Now, if it were a monthly agreement, let me go ahead and choose one of the monthly ones. It'll come up with the collected amount right here with how much I'm supposed to collect from the customer. And it would be a total amount of 0. The reason it comes this way is I'm only collecting the first month's payment from the customer, and that would be the $15 in my agreement template. So again, whatever type of agreement you choose, you would go ahead and it would fill in the total and collected amount. I'll go back to my prepaid one, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and that will save it. So that now adds the agreement line item onto my invoice. So that's how I show the customer I have sold them a service agreement or a maintenance plan. Okay, so let's go down some additional scenarios. In addition to selling service plans, you also sometimes will do the annual maintenances off of those plans. So if you're out there doing a maintenance visit, you would hit the plus visit button up here, and this would allow you to add a visit onto the invoice. Now, unfortunately, I don't have an invoice right here, but if you had an invoice due, it would... Unfortunately, I don't have a visit here. If you were to have a visit due, it would show up right here so that you can add that visit line item onto the invoice. So if you're out there doing an annual maintenance off of a pre-existing agreement, it's going to show up right here. You would click on that maintenance and it would add that line item to the invoice. And then once you're done, you would hit close and that item will be there onto the visit screen there. You'll have a visit right here showing that you're doing the annual maintenance visit. So that's how you would do one of those prepaid maintenance visits. Okay, let's go down another scenario. Every now and again, you're told to discount a job. Whether it be because of a friends and family discount or senior citizen, you may be told to discount. To do that, you would hit the plus discount button. And this will open up a screen where we can now discount the job. We can discount the job by a couple of different ways. We can click the amount button, and this would allow us to put in a discount amount right here and take that flat fee off the invoice. Maybe there's a percentage, and this would allow us to put in the percentage, and it would mark any item that is marked discountable with that percent of a discount. And then lastly, there is type. And this is where I can choose from discount types that might be inside your system already. You can choose club discounts, friends and families, parts only, any of the different types of discounts you may have would show up right here. Again, this would only take it off line items that are marked discountable. For this job, I'm not going to discount, so I'm going to go back to none, but I just wanted to show you that that was there. And then I can go ahead and hit close, and that will get me out of here. Now again, if you apply a discount, it would only mark to line items that are marked discountable, and it will not take it off the line item that's not marked discountable here, because remember I took off the discountable on the diagnostic. And at any point I can click back on a line item to edit it. I can edit the price level, or I can mark it as discountable or not if I needed to, right down there. Once I'm done, I would click Save, and that would save that item, and it would be back on my invoice. Okay, so at this point we have built an invoice for the customer. We've gone through and added items by hitting the plus item button. We have sold or renewed an agreement through the plus agreement button. We identified maintenance visits that we did off of pre-existing agreements here, and we've applied discounts if told to do so. Now I can hit the forward arrow at the bottom to proceed forward to present this invoice to the customer. And this will open it up so that I can now get this authorization from the customer, and it will present them right to a screen so that they can authorize me to proceed. So it's going to load up here with an authorization screen for you. You're going to see your logo at the top. You're going to see your information, including your name. You're going to see the customer's information. You're going to see all the line items you added onto the invoice. And if you were to put a price level, you're going to see the price level and how much you saved right there. And in addition, if you were to put a discount, you'll see how much right here inside this discount screen. So you'll have a subtotal, any taxation, any discount, and then a final total to present the customer right here. In addition, if your office loads up any kind of terms and conditions or legalese to show up on the invoice, it would all be right here as well for you to present to the customer. And you now present it to them saying, I authorize for the above work to be completed and agree to pay the above total. So you get the customer to sign right inside here, authorizing the work. If that signature wasn't appropriate or it didn't work or they made a mistake, you can always hit the clear signature button at the top and have them re-sign. So that's how you can get your signature right there. And once you're ready, you would hit the forward arrow, and that will save and store that signature back inside the office. So we now received authorization to proceed with our work. After getting authorization, it's now going to bring us to a payment screen. And this is where we can go through and collect payment. Now before we get into payment though, I do want to talk about some additional steps that you can do on the job at any point after the invoice. You can do that by hitting the menu button. And this will open up some additional information here. We now have access to a Notes button and a Parts button. First, if we go into Notes, this will allow us to put in notes on our job. These would be notes for the customer about what we did, or if we were to flip gears over to Work Suggested, what we recommend to the customer. So again, we could put in our Work Done notes about what we did and our Work Suggested notes about what we recommend. Now these notes will show up on the invoice. They will also show up back inside the office so they have a copy of it, and they will be on the service history for the location. So these notes are very important to have nice, detailed, clean notes for the customer and for you and your team going forward to be in the history. So let's go into Work Done. Now we can add notes in 3 different ways. I can first click inside here and type out what I did. So I can just freeform type it right here using the keyboard below that. I also can click inside here and hit the microphone button and do speak to type if it's turned on for your device to talk about what I did. And lastly, I could also use predefined Work Done notes if our team has them. And we can go ahead and select from pre-existing templates if your team's created them for different types of things that you've done, and it'll automatically add those notes by hitting the plus sign right into the Work Done notes. So you'll see it adds those notes right in there for me. So if your team creates a template like that, you can add notes that way too. Let me also show you the speak to type ability as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the microphone button and I'm going to speak. Installed a capacitor and a contactor. Now again, it's speak to type, so it's going to go by its best guess on what you're saying. So for me, it was install the capacitor and a contact. Well, I got to make sure I make it contactor, and also the word the is not what I wanted there, so I'm going to go back and change it by just clicking over there. This way I have nice clean notes about what I did, and I can even punctuate it if I needed to. Just be careful when you guys enter your notes, because the autocorrect on the device may change words to you. It may be your best friend, and it could also change words to make it a little bit more difficult for you as well. So just be mindful and always go back and read what it is you wrote to the customer before you're done. So that's how you enter your Work Done notes. Now I'm going to click inside Work Suggested and enter in my Work Suggested notes. And this time I'm going to try the speak to type again. Recommend annual maintenance. And you'll see now I have my recommend annual maintenance there, so that's something that's going to show up to the customer that I recommend annual maintenance there. All right, so I have my notes in here, and that's how I hit my notes. And then once I'm done, I hit back, and it'll bring me back to my payment screen. In addition to that, let's go ahead and talk about another thing that happens while you work the job. While you work the job, you also may be told to enter your parts into the device. This will show up as the parts you used on a job. To do that, you're going to hit the Parts button down at the bottom left. And this is going to open up a screen where we can go and add our parts. Again, I'm going to hit the menu button at the top to close it, make it a little easier to see everything. Now this is where I'm going to go through and add the parts I used on a job. And to do that, I would select the task that I'm working on and I would add the part to it. So for me, I'm going to go and add the capacitor. So I'm going to click inside my capacitor task. And this is where it'll list any parts that may have previously been assigned to this task. And now we can go through and add. So I hit the add button right here, and it allows me to add the item. I can go right through my catalog, or I can search for the item. It depends on what they tell you to do and how they set up your parts. Just the same way like adding an item onto the invoice. Now this is you identifying parts coming off your truck to the job. So you're going to go ahead and find this particular capacitor you used in this scenario, or for you, the part that you used on the job. And I'm going to go ahead and click search, and it's going to pop up with all the different size capacitors I have. I'm going to click on the right one, and I'm going to click save. And that's going to add that line item right there to show that I've used that part on the job. Now this is not customer facing. This is just something that shows up behind the scenes so that the office can restock your truck. So that's how you would go and add that part. You can go through and add multiple parts to it. You can add multiple quantities of each part by changing the quantity, or you can delete the part by hitting the X if it's not the right one. So I'm going to close out of that. And I'm going to go to my other task and add a part for that one as well. So I'm going to hit Add. And this time I'm going to just show that I used a, I'll just search for an item here, find one that makes sense here. There it is. And I click Save, and I've added that item onto the invoice. And now you'll see that it shows that I have my item that I used here for this task as well. And then I hit Close, and that's how I add my parts onto the job. And once I hit back, I'm now back at the payment screen. So again, those items are accessed through the side menu by hitting the menu button. And you can always go through and edit your notes or your parts at any point on the job once you get to the invoice. So this is where you can go through and add those items. And for me, I'm going to close back the side menu and proceed forward here. So now I'm at the payment screen. If there was a balance or a deposit on the account, I can apply those to the invoice and it'll change the amount due here. For this one, I'm going to leave it alone and show that I have a total of $519 and my total due is $519. I can change my payment amount here to be anything up to the full amount of the invoice if I'm told to collect a partial payment. Or if I choose a payment type here, it's going to automatically default to the total due. You'll see how it changed to $519. So now let's talk about the different payment types here. So first off, if I were to choose check, it allows me to plug in a check number and a signature name. This is where I can key in the check information, so it'll send it back to the office with the type of check I received from the job. The next option here is credit card. This is where I can either key in the credit card information here, or swipe if I plug in a swipe into the headphone jack, which is up here at the top of the iPad, and swipe a card. Once I plug in the headphone jack swiper, this swipe button should turn dark to show that it's activated, and you click the swipe button and then just swipe the card. So you can swipe the card or you can key it in. Both ways of entering the card, however, are not actually processed until you hit this forward arrow. Once you enter the card information, whether it's via swipe or keying, and you hit the forward arrow, that's when the card is actually processed. So you can swipe a few times or you can key it in to make sure it's correct before you hit the forward arrow and nothing will happen. But once you hit that forward arrow, that's when the card is actually charged. So you do not have to worry about charging the customer's card multiple times. Other payment options right here I can choose would be the other button, and I can choose from the different options I might have. If I were to hit the drop down here next to payment methods, I might have cash or finance or no charge, any of the different payment types you might have under the other field. You could do that and then put in a reference number here for the type of information you're collecting there. And then lastly, if it was a job you're not collecting any payment on, in other words, you're leaving an open balance, or if it was a $0 job, you can hit the None button, and it would put the payment back to 0 and allow you to proceed with no payment. For this job, I'm going to take a check. So I'm going to click on the check, and I'm going to plug in the check number and the signature name. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my check number, and then put in my signature name on the job, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the forward arrow to proceed with that check. Right here it pops up with a check policy. Some of you may have a policy to show that if the check were to come back, you would charge an administrative fee. Others of you may have a reminder for the technician to do something with the driver's license ID and stuff. Whatever you have set up inside your check policy will show up right here. And once you click yes, that'll proceed forward and it bring you to now what is called the approval screen. This is allowing you to get approval after completing the job that everything was done to the satisfaction. So you have the same invoice we were looking at before, complete with those notes that we added onto the invoice, all those line items that are there with the prices, and then our payment information as well. If this was a credit card, you would see the credit cards here, you'd see the last four, and you would see an authorization number, about a 15-digit authorization number right here. That is how you know that the card went through. And now you're going to be able to go ahead and present this to the customer and get their approval that the work was completed to their satisfaction and to pay the amount listed above. If this was a credit card transaction, this also turns into the credit card signature as well. So you go ahead and get a signature from the customer right here and then hit the forward arrow. And now you've gotten approval from the customer that everything was complete to their satisfaction. Once we get the approval, we now head back, we can now go to the job summary screen. This is where we're going to now debrief the job, and you'll see that it shows we're at the debrief screen, and we can now go ahead and put in our opportunities to show information that we collected on the job. Now before we do that though, we do want to let dispatch know that we're wrapping up. And to do that, we're going to hit the 10.8 button at the top. And by hitting the 10.8 button, you will send a notification over to the dispatch board. Now if your team uses that notification is typically shown to let dispatch know that you're about 15 minutes out from the call. So you're letting dispatch know that you're wrapping up, and so that they know to get your next call ready and waiting for you. So that's a little trigger to let dispatch know you're wrapping up the call. Okay, so now that we're wrapping up, we're going to go ahead now and take a look at the opportunities and stuff here from the call. So the first off is agreement opportunity. We can now check off whether or not this customer had an opportunity to sell them an agreement. So if we check it off, we show that there was an opportunity to do so. Below that is lead and opportunity generated. Everybody does these a little bit differently, but typically an opportunity generated is showing that you had an opportunity to speak to that customer about one of these items, whether it's things like an add-on or that their units are older or something like that. This is just showing that there's an opportunity there for work because their system is old. However, the one above it is lead generated. Lead generated typically means that you have either left a quote for that customer for the item, or you've scheduled it for somebody to come out and quote them on that item. So if you check off lead generated, it shows that you've generated a lead or left a quote for the customer. Below that is warranty opportunity and warranty sold. So if you guys happen to sell extended warranties, you can show that there was a warranty opportunity right here. And if you were to sell it, it will ask you for the years and the amount of the warranty right here and plug that in. In addition, there's replacement opportunity. Typically, this checkbox has to do with the age of the unit. For example, if the unit's over 10 years old, there might be an opportunity for replacement there. And then below that would be replacement sold. If you happen to sell the customer a replacement, it would ask you for the amount of the replacement right here. Below that is our job data. If we're told to change anything about the total ticket, we could do that right here. Or if we're told to enter in money task count information, we can plug that in right here as well. And below that, we have things such as our diagnostic only. So if it was a diagnostic only call, you can check it off right here. Or if it was a no charge call, we can check it off right here as well. And then below that, we have our different call types. We may have a call type for warranty call to show that this call was completed under warranty. There may be one for contract maintenance here, if you're out there doing a maintenance visit off a pre-existing customer. Below that would be non-contract maintenance. Maybe we're out there doing a paid tune-up. That's where we would check that off. And then lastly, callback. This allows us to check off that the call was a callback and then presents us with the history to allow us to check for which call it is a callback for. And this would just link those two calls in the system to show that we're out there on a callback for that call. So that's the job summary, guys. This information here is very important to the continued growth of your company. And your team may talk to you a little further about what they would like you to do, but that there is the general information on what to do in a job summary. Once you're done with the job summary, we can hit the forward arrow here to bring us to the final stage of the call, which is the complete assignment screen. All right, at this point, it's going to bring us to the final screen here where we can ultimately review the invoice and get ready to complete our assignment. So here we have the full invoice in front of us. All the notes, all the line items on it, payment information, and those two signatures. At the top, I can click Send Receipt, and this will pop up with the email address on file for the customer and allow me to email off the invoice right to the customer. So it pops up with the email address that we have saved on file for the customer. I can delete it and key one in right here to send it right off. However, that doesn't save the email address for the customer. Remember, to save it, we have to go into the menu here and go into that customer screen like we did in the beginning, and that enables you to save that invoice. But if it was just a one and done, you could type it in right here and send it along. Once you click OK, that'll send that email off to the customer. In addition to sending the receipt that way, there's also another way that it can happen as well. If you were to hit the Complete Assignment button down at the bottom, once it's done sending it, I will. I hit the complete assignment here, there will be an email and complete button that shows up right here if you didn't already email it to the customer. Since I already emailed it to them, it's not going to show up here. But if I didn't, there'd be email and complete right here, and I click on that, and that'll enable me to email and complete the call. At this point, I'm now getting ready to close the call. And when doing so, the call status of completed would come through automatically. I could just hit complete and close my call, no problem. However, if it was a call that needed to remain open and the office told you to do so, you can go ahead and choose one of your other statuses here to show that this call needs to be remained open. But typically, your call is going to be completed unless told to do so, and then you would just hit complete, and that's going to complete our assignment for us right now. So at this point, we've now emailed the receipt off to the customer, and we're now completing our call. So that's how you go through and work the call. It's now going to complete your assignment. Now, if you have another call waiting for you, it may ask if you'd like to dispatch to your next call. If you were to click yes, it would just proceed you right into your next call. And if not, it may bring up a time card status screen right here. And this now allows you to choose from time card status here to show what status you're doing right now because you're not dispatching out to your next call. Maybe you're available on the clock while you wait for a call, or you're heading to lunch when told to do so. Any of those options are here available to you as additional time card statuses between your day. But if you were to just dispatch out to your next call, you would be able to proceed forward, and it would bring you right to your next call and wouldn't ask you for one of these statuses. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and click available on the clock, and then click save. So I've now completed my assignment, and it's going to put me available on while I wait for my next call to pop up. You can always get into your time card status screen by hitting the status button up here. And this allows you to go and choose different statuses that you might have. So for example, you might be available on right now, and then the office tells you, okay, why don't you head to lunch while we wait for your next call? So you can click up here, choose the status, and you can choose lunch right now, and it would now set you to that new status. And then once you're done with the current status you're on, you can choose a different one, or if your call is ready and waiting for you, you can click on that call and head back out. So that's everything here about how to use a SWRemote version 3 for a service ticket. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact the support team at support@swremote.com or to give them a call at 800-566-6940. Again, that's support@swremote.com or 800-566-6940. Thank you and have a good day.